This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Just over a week ago, the Russian mercenary Wagner Group suffered a major defeat after being ambushed by insurgents in northern Mali, causing the paramilitary's worst loss of life on the African continent. Despite Russia's growing influence in Africa's Sahel region, with a renewed separatist rebellion plus ongoing Islamist insurgencies in Mali, all is not well for the Wagner Group. So in this video, we're going to explain the separatist conflict in Mali, the role of Russia, and what this latest attack means for the future. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. To understand this story, we're going to begin with the Tuareg and their role in the history of Mali. The Tuareg are a nomadic people who live, herd and trade across a large area of northern and western Africa. Under French colonial rule, the Tuareg were particularly rebellious, with anti-French uprisings in 1911, 1916 and 1917, and many Tuaregs expected their own state when the French eventually dismantled French West Africa. Unfortunately for the Tuareg, this isn't what ended up happening. Instead, Tuaregs were split across northeastern Mali and western Niger, with smaller populations in Burkina Faso, Algeria, and Libya. It's not easy to count people in sparsely populated areas, not least when these people are nomadic or semi-nomadic, but there are estimated to be at least a few million Tuareg across northern and western Africa. In Mali, they even make up a majority in the Kidal region, and are present mostly in the northern half of the country. Now, the Tuareg have long sought an independent state in northern Mali, or at least greater autonomy. As such, there were several Tuareg rebellions across the decades since Mali's independence in 1960, but the most serious uprising came in January 2012. Now, the entire region had been destabilized by the collapse of Muammar Gaddafi's regime in Libya, and Tuareg rebels had coalesced around a new group called the National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad, or MNLA. While the MNLA were nominally a secularist group focused on Tuareg independence, they teamed up with Al-Qaeda-linked Islamist jihadist groups in the region, who were also fighting government forces. The MNLA made swift progress throughout northern Mali, prompting yet another military coup in the country's capital of Bamako, and by April they captured northern Mali's three largest cities. And then, by April 2012, the MNLA declared the independence of Azawad. Unfortunately for the MNLA, no foreign state recognized Azawad's legitimacy, and both the European Union and African Union declared it illegitimate. Regardless, the MNLA's ad hoc alliance of Islamist groups collapsed fairly quickly, and they soon found themselves in conflict with each other, with the jihadists effectively usurping the MNLA and continuing to push south, capturing the central town of Kona in January 2013, with their eyes on the capital. It was at this point that France, in support of the Malian government, launched a military intervention, which was able to dislodge the Islamist groups and largely end their occupation of northern Mali. The French then followed up with another operation beginning in 2014, which aimed to expand France's counter-terrorism operations across the Sahel region, including in Mali, where Al-Qaeda and later IS-linked terrorist groups continue to pose a security threat. Additionally, the United Nations MINUSMA mission had deployed in Mali in 2013, aiming to stabilize the country following its latest rebellion and support its political processes. By the way, the Malian government and Tuareg separatists signed a shaky peace deal in June 2013, and ultimately signed a more robust one in 2015 that offered greater local autonomy. Nonetheless, jihadist violence continued to plague Mali's north and east, particularly following the 2017 merger of existing Islamist militant groups into Al-Qaeda-affiliated JNIM. Against the backdrop of this persistent insecurity, military coups in 2020 and 2021 eventually brought Colonel Assimi Goïta to power, under whom Mali's security policies were drastically shaken up. Relations with ex-colonial power France collapsed, prompting France to pull its military out in 2022, while at the same time the junta warmed up to Russia, with the Wagner mercenary group deploying to Mali as its new security partner. Then, in June 2023, the Malian junta ordered the departure of the UN MINUSMA mission by the end of 2023, accusing the peacekeeping force of failing to respond to the country's security challenges. The withdrawal of French and UN troops saw insurgent violence rise, and Tuareg separatists, who had been largely assuaged by the presence of the UN, warned that the UN's withdrawal would deal a fatal blow to the 2015 peace process. This ended up being true, and hostilities between the Tuareg separatists and the Malian military, plus the Wagner Group, ultimately resumed around August 2023. Now, the Wagner Group and Malian military scored an early victory in their effort to reconquer the north of the country, when in November they took back the northeastern town and military base of Kidal from Tuareg separatists. But skip to a week or so ago, and the Wagner Group suffered a devastating battlefield defeat at the hands of Tuareg rebels or jihadist insurgents, or maybe even both, near a town on Mali's northern border with Algeria. Dozens of Wagner fighters were killed, with some estimates as high as 50 to 80 casualties, making it likely the largest loss that Wagner has faced in Africa in a single battle. Reportedly among the dead were the contingent's commander, as well as one of Russia's most popular military bloggers. The exact sequence of events here isn't totally clear. Both the Tuareg separatists and JNIM jihadist fighters have claimed credit for the successful attack. Some reports suggest that the Malian and Russian mercenary convoy was initially intercepted and ambushed by Tuareg separatists, and the JNIM fighters finished off the remaining troops that had sought to retreat. In any case, this was a battlefield disaster for the Wagner Group, evidenced by the group making a rare admission that it has suffered significant losses. So, what does this mean for Wagner and Mali? Firstly, it will likely stop them from overextending themselves in the north, probably instead relying increasingly on drones, something that's bad news for civilians. For example, Mali's retaliatory strike following last week's attack reportedly killed mostly African migrant laborers. Second, as one academic states, a political blow has been dealt to Mali's rulers, since we can see that it is Wagner who is carrying out the operations, while the Malians appear to be playing a supporting role. Third, the deadly attack demonstrates that the junta's partnership with the Wagner Group is not a silver bullet to defeating terrorists and insurgents. In fact, their capabilities are significantly lower than those of the French forces before them. This could create a tension between the junta and Wagner, as the junta has staked a lot on working with Wagner to re-establish security in the country. Ultimately, Mali finds itself in an all-too-familiar position. It's fighting a war on at least two fronts. It's up against a renewed Tuareg separatist rebellion and a continued violent Islamist insurgency. The two once again seem to have a common cause, which is bad news for the junta because it could end up like 2012 and result in significant territorial losses and fragmentation of the country. The junta's reliance on the Wagner Group is a new addition to the mix, and the group's heavy-handed approach and little concern for human rights could easily push more people in Mali's north towards the insurgencies that are pulling the country apart. Now, be sure to keep an eye on this story as it evolves, as much like every area of our lives, it's sure to progress quickly. In fact, if you're feeling left behind by the news cycle and fast developments in things like AI and tech, then you'll want to check out Brilliant. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do, both for personal and professional growth. And Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in minutes a day, with fun lessons that you can do whenever you have time. It's the opposite of mindlessly scrolling and truly helps you learn quickly. One course I found particularly interesting was their course on large language models. We hear a lot about AI and LLMs in the news, but Brilliant helped me to actually get hands-on with real language models, as well as exploring how they build vocabulary, choose their next word, and more. They also helped me grasp the importance of training data by comparing models trained on Taylor Swift lyrics to models trained on a cookbook or big text terms and conditions. If you want to learn more and understand the world around you better, whether that's in order to get a job in AI or just to understand what everyone's talking about, then you can try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/TLDR or by clicking the link in the description. Plus, by doing so, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video.